So here we go with our a lecture about semantics of adjectives. I'm asking you to read the following chapter as well about nouns, but here I'm going to just concentrate on adjectives. Um, so let's look at some of the key concepts we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at synonyms, complementaries, antonyms, converses, paraphrases, the notion of gradability, unbiased and biased adjectives, and the notion of an intersecting adjective. Synonyms, as we popularly know them, are equivalents of senses. So, dad, daddy, pop, papa, pa, father are really all the same. You could argue that sociolinguistically they're not, because we wouldn't substitute these terms in all situations. Sofa, settee, couch, polite, courteous are examples of synonyms. So, what synonyms are, in a sense, is a kind of a paraphrase, or we can go beyond a synonym to a paraphrase, a sentence which expresses the same proposition as another sentence. So, for example, Maya sold an iPod to Alex, and we can paraphrase that Alex bought an iPod from Maya. Beneath there is the way that we can express that in semantically. So sentence one entails sentence two, and sentence two entails sentence one. So the arrow, the symbol there used of the arrow, means entails. You can have a look at these and ask whether they're paraphrases or not paraphrases. So Anna is the parent of James. James is the child of Anna. Are they paraphrases? Yeah. Some countries have no coastline. Not all countries have a coastline. Okay? So good. Yeah, that is a paraphrase. Now look at this one. The fly was on the wall. The wall was under the fly. Getting tricky here, especially with prepositions, because we can see different meanings or senses of the use of on and under. What about four? My mother owns this house. This house belongs to my mother. Yeah, there's a paraphrase. So in 1, 2, and 4, I think we can say that sentence 1 entails sentence 2, and therefore sentence 2 entails sentence 1. But number 3 there is kind of tricky. Have a look at these particular synonyms and paraphrases. What about silent and noiseless? When you look at those as synonyms, you'd probably say, yeah, that seems to be okay. Well, now let's put them in sentences and use paraphrases. The room was silent. The room was noiseless. Yeah, that seems okay. But what about this? He didn't respond. He remained silent. He didn't respond. He remained noiseless. It gets a bit tricky here because we tend to associate silent with people, especially in that particular context of not speaking, as not being the same as noiseless. We may be silent, not speaking, but we certainly may be making noise, like breathing hard. We might be coughing. Our muscles may be creaking, etc. Okay, let's move on to another sense relation. And remember, sense relations are semantic relationships which show the meanings of particular words. And we're going to look at what are called complementaries. We use a complementary when we divide some conceptual domain into two mutually exclusive compartments. You probably come across this particularly term in phonology when we talk about complementary distribution, and you probably got the example of Clark Kent and Superman. Superman and Clark Kent are never in the same place. If you see Clark Kent, then you're not seeing Superman. If you see Superman, then Clark Kent cannot be there. So that's the way that our two exclusive, mutually exclusive compartments are created by complementaries. So Hendrix is dead and Hendrix is alive. Notice that the particular way we map the entailments here is kind of quite complex. So one entails not two, and not one entails two, and therefore two entails not one, and not two entails one. We've just reversed it. But that gives us a complete map of the entailments of complementaries. One of the tests for complementaries is the fact that you can't be either one or the other. So we can't use a phrase like neither. So if you say the snake was neither dead nor alive, that's kind of weird. It's nonsense. Of course, you might be thinking of other realities, and we have, of course, our popular alternative reality of the notion of the undead. These are the kind of people who are neither dead nor alive, they're undead. Have a look at these. Are these complementaries or not? Good or bad? Okay, you can use the test neither good nor bad. Well, okay, fine, that's okay. That's what we call a gradable antonym. Okay, it can be quite good, very good, or it could be average. It was neither good nor bad, it was average. It was neither true nor false. I don't know what we could say there. True and false are complementaries. Open and shut. It was neither open nor shut. No, we can't say that. Again, open and shut are really our complementaries. We can say things like half open, half shut, okay? A little bit open, but in a sense, a little bit open is open and shut is shut. Again, these are exclusive complementaries. Rising and falling, it was neither rising nor falling. It was static or stationary. Yeah, that's not a complementary. That is an antonym. Male and female. He's neither male nor female. Well, in our society, of course, that would be a complementary, but think of other societies, India and more recently Australia, where they do have three official genders. So in that sense, you could say, I'm neither male nor female, I am transgender or something like that. Left-handed and right-handed. Well, we know physiologically that we have degrees of handedness. So we can be neither left-handed nor right-handed. We can be ambidextrous. Okay. Obey and disobey. Yeah, that's a complementary. He neither obeyed nor disobeyed. Nah, that's weird. Okay, so you get the gist of complementaries. Okay, so what we saw there was some of the antonyms, good, bad. The street was noisy, the street was quiet. Now, look at the entailments here. One entails not two, and two entails not one, okay? But we cannot go on to say that not noisy entails quiet, all right? It could be, well, a little less noisy. And we can't say this not quiet entails noisy, because there are degrees, there is gradability, there's a middle ground. We can say it was neither noisy nor quiet, right? Okay, our next sense relationship are converses, and these are types of synonyms that require reordering of the noun phrases, and we saw some of these when we looked at paraphrase. So California is richer than some countries. Okay, we can switch the noun phrases around and say some countries are poorer than California. One test we can use is the if-then test. If California is richer than some countries, then some countries are poorer than California. Okay, so see if you can try this. Which are converses? Okay. If below and above, and you can put these into sentences, for example, John was below Bill, Bill was above John. Okay, that's okay. Grandparent and grandchild. Yeah, that works okay. We can talk about Frank being the grandchild of Molly, and Molly being the grandparent of Frank. Love and hate. These converses. John loves Mary, Mary hates John. No, that's not one. To conceal and reveal. No, that doesn't work out. Own and belong to. That works out. And we saw an example earlier than that. Our John bought a house from Mary. Mary sold John a house. That's okay. John borrowed some money from Mary. Mary lent some money to John. That's okay. That's a converse. John gave some money to Mary. Mary took some money from John. Not really, because that tends to have a slightly different meaning. And come and go, again, are not converses. Okay, so when we talk about adjectives, one of the key ideas is gradability. So if you look at big and small, there are degrees of bigness and there are degrees of smallness. And one of the tests of gradability is we can use comparatives, bigger, and we can use superlatives, biggest. We can also use intensifiers, kind of small, a bit smaller, on the small side, quite big, very big, dead big, if you know that use of dead. So those are all intensifiers, and there are all tests of the gradability of those adjectives. It's quieter in the party than in the street. It's the quietest party I've ever been to. It's too quiet. It's not very noisy. How noisy do you want it? Okay, so noisy and quiet are gradable adjectives. But let's look at the word true. Notice, remember before we looked at true and false as being complementaries. Okay, this argument is truer than that one. Okay, and there's an asterisk there to suggest that's kind of weird. That's the rightest answer I've ever heard. I've heard today. No, that's weird. He's very dead. He's too stationary now. How disconnected is the computer? So words like dead, disconnected, stationary are not gradable adjectives. What they are in a sense is absolutes. Here's some, just to repeat some of those tests for gradable adjectives. Blood is thicker than water. He's the creepiest person I know. You're too kind. How cool is that? She was very tough. They're all gradable adjectives, okay? But when we get to the extremes of the grade there, we get to absolute adjectives, which are not, okay? So boiling and freezing, we can't say use those particular comparatives or superlatives with those absolutes. So these are non-gradable or absolute adjectives, and here's a few of them: equal, eternal, fatal, final, infinite, perfect, supreme, total, unanimous, and unique. Okay? So we can't say things like OU is better than OSU. The movie was very excellent. No, just excellent. How freezing was the weather in Minneapolis? Nah, we don't say that. Okay? Practically perfect, maybe we say that. And we do say things like my bestest friend, but these are kind of idiomatic expressions. Um, it's too perfect, again, that's possible, but again, it refers to a specific situation and has a specific meaning. It's kind of idiomatic expression. So complementaries are resistant to grading. Um, But again, more examples of idiomatic expressions that seem to contradict that. You never said a truer word. Too true. That's very true. How true that is. But what I would argue is that true and false are complementaries, and what we're seeing there are kind of idiomatic expressions. But that's just an example how we can never actually fix semantic rules. Um, the way that we use language is meaningful in particular contexts, and you can see how those particular phrases are expressing truths. That is, them expressing meaning, which goes beyond that particular rule about complementaries not being gradable. Here, we're using idiomatic expressions. Um, the next thing I'm going to talk about is the notion of unbiased and biased adjectives. I'll say, okay, so what is unbiased is the question, how tall are you? When you go to the doctors, the nurse doesn't say, how short are you? You'd probably say, hey, what do you mean short? I'm not short. I'm 5'10". So, how short are you is biased. How tall are you is unbiased. Okay? So, here's a list of unbiased adjectives. How old are you? How deep is it? How strong is it? How heavy is it? Mm-hmm. The next thing I want to talk about is intersecting adjectives. Just to go back to that biased unbiased questions. Sometimes biased questions can be used as a kind of a joke. So if you're talking to a 90-year-old woman, you might, jokingly say, "How young are you?" And that's a kind of a cute way of saying, talking about a person's youth in terms not of their biological age, but in terms of how young their heart is. Okay, so now let's look at intersecting adjectives. These are adjectives modifying nouns, and what we're looking at the intersection of the sets. Okay, so if we say a red ball, we have two sets. Okay, we have things which are red, and we have things which are balls, and when they intersect, we have a particular thing called a red ball. Um, Contrast that with what we call non-intersecting adjectives. And some examples of non-intersecting adjectives are former, imaginary, fake, and alleged. Now, you can create a set of things which are fake, and there's certainly a set of things which are diamonds. Okay, are but when you talk about fake diamonds, okay, they're of course no longer diamonds, so they can't be in the part called diamonds. But of course, they can be in the part called fake. So in that sense, they're not intersecting, right? So balls can be red, and red, we can have red balls, and so therefore that intersects. But we can't have things which are fake and things which are diamonds because they can't intersect, because fake diamonds are not part of diamonds. Got it? Another particular type of adjective is what we call relative adjectives, and these are words like small, big, wide, narrow. They're relative in the sense that what we describe by wide can vary tremendously. So a wide load on going down the highway might be 12 feet wide, okay? But a wide shipping lane could be 150 feet wide. Or compare a big molecule and a small planet, okay? So big and small are relative, okay? So the size of the molecule being big is kind of relative to what we know about molecules. And a small planet, we live on a small planet, but that's relative compared to other much larger planets. The word brave is also a relative adjective. We can talk about a brave child getting a shot. Oh, great, good for you. But that's a different kind of brave to when we talk about a brave firefighter. A third type of adjective is what we're going to call ambiguous adjectives, and these have two different meanings. So if you said that Richard Nixon was a bad politician, then you're perhaps conveying there's two explanations. One, that he was immoral, okay, criminal, okay, and the second would be that he wasn't very good at being a politician. Well, actually, Richard Nixon was very good at being a politician, right? He just was a crook, meaning he was a bad politician, okay? So a good student could mean a student gets lots of A's, always does their homework. But that student might be morally corrupt. It might not be the kind of student you would want to sit next to in class, apart from the fact they get all A's. Here's a classic one. What happened in 1994 in Rwanda is a good example of genocide. Okay, notice the meaning of good here means an exact, a very exact example, not good in the sense of this is what we want to encourage people to do. Okay, so I'm going to end there on that. And what we've looked at is various types of adjectives. We've looked at unbiased adjectives, intersecting adjectives, and ambiguous adjectives. And before that, we looked at a whole set of sense relations. We looked at synonyms and paraphrase, complementaries, antonyms, and converses.